The 6.3 patch is now live, and with it, we've got a cool new dungeon to explore, Lapis Manalis, which is also part of the MSQ. If you finish the story, there's a chance you may have already seen it for yourself, but in this video, we're going through all the boss mechanics that will make your next run a breeze. This guide contains no story spoilers or cutscenes, all you'll see is the actual dungeon footage, so without further ado, let's go. My name is Ivona from momsden.com, and if this is your first time around here, subbing is a good idea. I make simple FF14 guides that'll answer some of your questions in no time and give you quick in-game wins. I also live stream on this channel quite a bit, so if you're a fan of awesome communities, in-game and other highlights, I'm sure I'll see you around. Albion is the first boss of the dungeon, and by far the easiest one. Shortly after you engage the boss, it will cast Call of the Mountain, and what you need to do is look to the edges of the arena for a cloud of snow being kicked up after the cast is through. A wave of untargetable enemies will stampede across the arena from here, so if you're a tank, kite the boss away from this line or keep yourself out of range. From here on out, you'll see a lot of rather familiar mechanics. Left slam will target the left side of the arena relative to Albion's position, so just make sure to dodge it. There's also a variation of this attack called right slam, so you just need to move to the opposite side of the one that's being slammed. Knock on ice is another attack where you need to dodge the ice chunks as they fall and move away from the one Albion looks at and targets. You'll notice that it's marked and you need to stay away from it. Similarly to Fenrir from Snow Cloak, you need to hide behind a chunk of ice before Albion finishes casting the room-wide AoE Roar of Albion. You can come out of hiding the moment the cast bar disappears, even though the animation plays a few seconds later. Albion will repeat these mechanics until you defeat it, and after you've seen all of the mechanics, you just need to bring his health to 0 in order to go to the next one. Galatea Magna is the second boss of the dungeon, and admittedly the more difficult one. As soon as the fight starts, Galatea will use a donut AoE raining cycle, followed by a circular AoE immediately after. To dodge this, you need to wait for the first AoE marker to disappear and then immediately get away from her. In case she uses the waxing cycle instead, stay away from her first and then move in close right after, as the mechanic will be reversed and you'll go from a point-blank AoE to a donut AoE instead. After this, the boss will use a kind of familiar looking AoE called Soul Sight, followed by the room-wide AoE Soul Nebula. All you need to do is dodge and heal accordingly. From here, Galatea Magna will introduce her most difficult mechanic, which is the Scarecrow Chase. You will see an X-shaped AoE spawning underneath her and 2 portals marked with orbs. After the cast goes through, she will sprint to each orb and resolve an X-shaped AoE in the order they are marked. She won't change the direction she faces during this, so try to visualize the safe spots before the attack begins and you'll be safe. Oh, and if you happen to get hit by Scarecrow Chase, you will suffer from the Doom debuff, so if that happens to you, or you're the healer, make sure to pay attention and get that cleansed with Asuna or something like that. The boss will then cast Tenebrism, which does no damage but causes a countdown debuff. 4 meteor markers will spawn and resolve around her very quickly, so each party member should stand in one each and not overlap. The debuffs from Tenebrism will resolve by making gaze markers appear above everyone's heads, so look away from each other and keep fighting once it goes off. From here on out, all the mechanics will repeat, so keep resolving them until the boss is no more. The only difference is the Scarecrow Chase, which will spawn 4 portals here instead of 2 when you see it again. This can be a bit more tricky to avoid, so use defensive cooldowns if needed until you get the hang of this mechanic. Cagnazzo is the final boss of this dungeon, and he begins the fight with Stygian Deluge, a not particularly severe room-wide AoE that you can heal through. Cagnazzo will then cast Antediluvian, spawning water bubbles above the arena. Pay attention to the order of the bubbles spawn, as 3 sets of 2 will appear. Large circular AoEs will resolve in the order the bubbles appear, so move around the boss to dodge or find a safe corner, which could take some time to get used to but isn't too complicated. Before the last bubbles pop, Cagnazzo will cast Body Slam, as it's indicated by the knockback AoE in the arena's center. Move in close and position yourself so you'll get pushed into a safe zone away from the last bubbles. If you step in the water, you'll suffer from damage over time for about 15 seconds. After this, Cagnazzo will charge Hydraulic Ram and mark a rapid series of AoEs on the floor. This is kind of hectic and possibly difficult to dodge, as circular AoEs will be resolving as Cagnazzo dashes across the arena in a zigzag pattern before returning to his initial location. You'll gain a Vuln stack each time he hits you, so defensive cooldowns and barriers are recommended if you have any. You should gather for a stack AoE in Hydro Fall, which is really not that bad, so just heal up and you'll be fine. Cagnazzo will then use Cursed Tide before triggering an ad phase. There are 4 debuffs that appear here that you should keep track of. 3 party members will have a shorter debuff that resolves a proximity AoE on all of them at once. The longer debuff is a stack AoE, so get ready to regroup once those proximity AoEs are resolved. If you have the stack AoE, try to position yourself in max melee range of an ad towards the center of the arena. This will make it easier for your party members to form a group around you. Be wary of the AoEs and chip away at the fearsome Flotsams before Cagnazzo's power reaches maximum value, which is kind of a DPS check, so keep yourself safe while dealing as much damage as you can and you'll be fine. You'll have a long intermission waiting for Cagnazzo to cast his next attack once the Flotsams go down, so heal up and throw some shields if you can. After this, Cagnazzo will use Void Cleaver and tether each party member to an orb. Cone AoEs will randomly appear in the direction that the tether is facing, so move near your orb to dodge the attack. All ranged players should stay near the arena's edge to safely bait their tethers away from their party members. Melee DPS don't have much they can do here without sacrificing DPS uptime, but that's okay. Cagnazzo will use his own series of cone AoEs, followed by a tank buster during this phase, so just keep dodging and keep yourself safe, which should be enough to beat the boss. That's all I could think of when it comes to the bosses of Lapis Manalis. Have I forgotten to mention anything? Let me know in the comments, and if you haven't subbed yet, make sure to do that now, so you don't miss out on more easy FF14 wins. Massive thanks to everyone supporting the channel, and especially our alphas like Kathy Spear on YouTube memberships, as well as Andyman, Space Cadet Rick, and Elijah Baker over on Patreon. If you'd like to join them and keep the content going, all the links are in the description of this video. Enjoy the new dungeon, have fun, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye bye!